The B-roll that you're seeing is so far my day-to-day in the Mr. Pandaria remix so far. It's a trash run that takes around 5 or so minutes to do. This is hard to fear, by the way. And it scores me approximately 500 or so bronze, 20, maybe 25 or so of those stat threads, and a little spattering of chipped gems. So far, I've never hit the instance limit because while doing this, I might be, I'm usually working on other things, or I'm clicking to the next YouTube video or the next thing on the Spotify, or, whatever. Or maybe the instance limit isn't working, I don't know. But I think as of this recording, more people have wised up and they're farming the spot too, and I'll just enjoy it while I can. Anyway, hey, it's Soul with another video on the Mr. Pandaria remix that is 1 part feedback, 2 parts commentary, maybe 3 parts commentary, on the conversations that are going around the past couple days. I'm going to be just sharing my thoughts, and of course you can do the same in a comment. And I've been reading everything related to the remix and taking in how people are feeling. Maybe by now you know about the frog farming that came and went over the weekend. Players were quick to point out that the frogs over in the Timeless Isle could still hyperspawn, and they dropped all sorts of goodies like threads and bronze, but most importantly those charms of good fortune, which could be turned in for a box full of, again, the threads and the bronze. It was by far the fastest way to farm, and frankly it turned the approach of the remix into this very simple, just do a 2x4 farming spree in the group finder, and that didn't take much of any effort or skill or planning. It didn't really need anything that the remix had to offer. You just, need to find the group, tag mobs, and you're done. Now, of course, the point of the remix is also to cheese content by playing with the gem combinations and get stats and then lay waste to your enemies all over the place. The problem with the frog farm was that, again, you didn't even have to do that. So while I'm surprised that it even made launch in the first place, I am not surprised that it's gone. What I've noticed though are conclusions from critics and other commentators that the remix is, oh my god, it's ruined, because a handful of very strong characters are like weeks or maybe months ahead of others who just wanted to play their own way and get strong and farm bronze and whatever. And I feel like I should, just take some time to respond to that. So this isn't me like dropping some base take or clapping back at the haters. Like, I'm just sharing my perspective here, and you might think that I'm wrong, and that's totally cool. I'm not trying to defend anything here, but anyway, let's remind ourselves what the remix is. It's this fully opened up expansion experience for Miss Pandaria where we just like have at it. If we want to, we can make a character and level it to 70, and then when that's done, use the bronze that they got to buy whatever cosmetics that we can, and then leave that thing for later and make another character and then do it again, maybe a little bit faster. And that can be all it is in order to get most of the rewards that you want, and then you'd be fine. And now I thought I'd do that, but after the interview that I did, I got the impression that eventually I'll be able to solo dungeons or raids or maybe even Mythic Garrosh, and that kind of planted a seed in my head, and it eventually led to me changing my approach. So after completing the important achievements that I wanted to do at first, because that was like my, first part of the plan, I decided, okay, I'm gonna seek out power instead, and I've been walking down that route since. Now, I do confess that I farmed frogs for like, I'd say an hour or so. Like, I hesitated to do it at the start because, hyperspawn farms, they're not my idea of a good time. I mean, you could just keep looking at my B-roll if you want to get an idea of what I think is kind of a good time. But I did do it for a bit, and I saw the benefits, I saw the speed and the advantage, and I thought, okay, this is definitely going to be nerfed, but I didn't even want to stick around before it went away because, again, that's just not, it's not how I wanted to define my remix experience. I didn't want to look back and be like, oh yeah, here's what I did, that was my story. It didn't sound very fun or memorable. So over more hours of experimenting and trying stuff out here and there, I found my home here in the Heart of Fear raid. When I heard about the frog nerf, I was still in here, and when and even when I was participating in different conversations and discourse around that subject, I was here. I was plugging away and gaining my bits of strength. To me, this still feels good because it's me doing this without additional help, and there's at least a measure of preparation and usage of the remix's features that, it gives me that sense of satisfaction, like, hey, I'm participating, I'm using the game, and this is what I'm getting out of it. The frog stuff highlighted what might be an ugly truth about the remix that maybe people forgot about, or maybe they're even in denial about it. Critics are arguing that folks who took advantage of frogs or the frogging, that they have this unfair advantage and that they can't catch up. It only sort of makes sense to me because the advantage relative to what, that depends on each person. But more broadly or more philosophically, what we're seeing is what happens when World of Warcraft does not do certain things like cap progress each week or otherwise put in controls that both prevent players from getting too far too fast and letting players who come in late to the game catch up. We don't have that here. But it's like, hey, that's a Dragonflight thing. All we have to do is look in that direction to see different sorts of complaints over having to farm for flight stones. Like, oh god, we hate the cap, and we hate capping on crests. Blizz, just, let us play the game, right? Now, I'm not trying to say that one method is better than the other, just that these are the consequences of having like this system or that system with the control. Players are going to respond in different ways, and even if there was no frog farm, we would still eventually, maybe not so soon, but we would eventually see a number of those players who happen to be more dedicated, happen to have more time on their hands, happen to be streamers, so it's part of how they make a living. We would see these people be ahead of others, and that's going to make some people feel envious. As the remix progresses, the WoW team is going to help players along somehow, some way. Like, hotfixes have already happened, with more on the way, but the very core of the remix's design is very hands-off of the ideas of caps and catch-ups. This weekend showed us an example of that thanks to an oversight on the devs' part, a bug. But even without it, this discourse was going to happen. Meanwhile, I've just been, I've been hanging out in here mostly, plugging away, getting a bunch of stats and a handful of bronze, and I'm probably getting bronze faster than like normal, just not at frog speed, of course. And for many of you, maybe this doesn't look like any fun at all. Again, I'm not here defending my approach or strategy. Of course, maybe some of you are taking down notes or you're heading over to Heart of Fear right now to try this out. I guess what I feel is like a little bit saddened, is that there are those people out there who care way too much about how others are doing, if that makes any sense. And from there, they're making suggestions to be like, hey, you know what? The game should change for everyone because I want to be satisfied. Now, in some cases, maybe cases like this, it does feel discouraging to take that climb of, gaining power or I guess bronze or whatever, knowing that someone got to that height in an unfair way, in this case, the frogs and stuff. The problem is, though, even without the frogs, the remix just isn't designed to be necessarily fair in the way that we might think or want it to be. But that's why I always try to preach attainable goals and realistic expectations in my commentary. Like, floating out there is other discourse over feeling forced to grind out 1-point-something million bronze in order to get all of the rewards that the remix has to offer. Now, some of the facts there, or I guess all the facts there, are kind of true, but dude, that's like no way to get someone excited or curious about a game feature like this. It's way better to show people this one cool shaman set or this very cool mount. And what if I were to tell you, like, hey, you can get both the set and the mount just by leveling one character in the remix and, by smashing quests and killing mobs. Like, I'm not good on the average amount of bronze that's earned per character, but for me it happened to be 65,000 or so bronze that I got by the time I hit level 70. But hey, it's cool being able to tell someone, dude, you can get that one reward through this very easy to understand path by leveling and gathering up this currency. And then you can buy all this stuff. Hey, check it out. Now, maybe it'll take a person a day or two or more, but they can imagine it, they can fathom it, they can, they can see it. Drop in the grand total with a reminder that this is a limited time event. That's kind of like clickbait, I guess. I mean, yeah, I guess it's factual information, but there's no context. It's not personalized for the listener, for the viewer, and it's easily misleading. And that sort of stuff just rubs me the wrong way. But you know what? I think for now, I'm going to stop. I know that I got pretty ranty there at a few points, but if, just for curiosity's sake, if you want to look at the screen real quick, I'm going to try to summarize or average how much stuff I earned during this recording. So the floor is yours. Share your thoughts, because I just did. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.